So how did people from over 4,000 years ago do it? They built this massive structure without having technology, equipment, or anything. All they had were a set of simple metal tools and some wood. And the strangest thing of all is how these people managed to fix the pyramid stones on top of each other without any cement or adhesive materials. And the answer to this question is one of two things. Either those people were somehow supernatural, God forbid, or they managed to find a particular method of construction that required neither modern technology nor complex tools, but a very simple way that was so simple it never crossed anyone's mind. Hello, and in this episode of Midnight Questions, we'll answer how the pharaohs built the pyramids. But before we start, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell to get our videos first. The topic of how the pharaohs built the pyramids includes a large set of theories, some of which are completely rejected, others accepted, and some are rather amusing, such as one hypothesis that suggests the pyramids were built by aliens. Although the topic may seem humorous to some, there are indeed a set of studies and research about this subject and a large number of people. They firmly believe that it was the aliens who built the pyramids. But of course, this is not logical at all and is just a hypothesis, nothing more. Another strange thing that is widespread in the minds of some people is their belief that the pharaohs were giants with long bodies, something like the giants in Attack on Titan. And so, giant people like those could easily lift the stones with their hands and move them from place to place and build the pyramid quite simply, and it's not far-fetched that they might have even thrown the stones to each other. Of course, this is also untrue. The pharaohs were not giants or anything like that, and their heights were generally normal. This is evident as the bodies of the pharaohs' mummies in museums are not large or anything but are the size of any other human. Also, if we look at their coffins in the tombs and museums, or even inside the pyramids themselves, we will find that the coffin sizes are very normal and not large or anything. Therefore, the bodies of the pharaohs were like ours, just without the belly. The traditional story about how the pharaohs built the pyramids, which they told us when we were young, is that they transported this stone from southern Egypt and brought it to the current pyramid site. They moved 2 million stones, each weighing tons, over that immense distance. Anyway, finally, they made an earthen ramp around the pyramid, then rolled the huge stone over cylindrical wooden rollers and pulled it with ropes by using the workers. And although the story passed by us casually, we need to pause at it a little first. Scientifically, for this method to be implemented, the earthen ramp must be reinforced concrete, because a dirt ramp can't possibly support the weight of 70 tons moving on it, as it would simply collapse. Additionally, the wooden rollers wouldn't bear these loads either, and you would need at least very strong steel wheels because we're talking about 70 tons. So the method of wooden rollers and the earthen ramp and all this nonsense. Even if we assume they implemented this method, the size of the embankment he talks about would have to be 10 times larger than the pyramid. And some thinkers say that constructing this gigantic earthen ramp and these massive roads around the pyramid, and then removing them without leaving any trace, is in itself an achievement greater than that of the pyramid itself. Scientifically, it is impossible to remove such a ramp and these massive roads without leaving any trace, and indeed, we have not found any trace of them to this day, which makes the whole story untrue. Some recently emerged hypotheses in an attempt to support the previous theory suggest that researchers have speculated that the pharaohs, while pulling the stones over the wooden rollers, would spray water on them. This would ease the movement of the rollers and reduce the force needed to move these stones. As for the point about how the pharaohs transported 2 million massive stones from southern Egypt to their current site in Giza, researchers suggest that the desert area where the pyramid is located was a riverine area with multiple channels and branches from the Nile River. Thus they transported these stones via the water. But of course, in the end, these are all attempts to justify the previous method, as we said. But still, the method is completely illogical and contains many unanswered questions. The most important of these questions is how there is this huge stone to these enormous heights without any cranes, planes, or modern equipment. But of course, nobody answered. Did the pharaohs, for example, have a device that allowed them to cancel gravity in a certain area to easily lift the stone, and the pharaoh comes up and the stone is placed? Unfortunately, there's no evidence of that. Let's quickly move to another point. How is the pyramid stone fixed together without using cement materials? The answer they gave us back then was also materials. They fixed the stones on top of each other using what is called air displacement, which simply means they placed two stones on top of each other
and somehow remove the air particles between the stones. And thus the stones begin to stick to each other as if there were an adhesive substance between them. But still, there is no evidence for that, and it's all just speculation because the issue of air evacuation itself requires advanced technologies. One of the most astonishing things about the pyramids is how they made the stone surfaces so precisely leveled. The stones of the pyramid are shaped like cubes and regular parallelograms and rectangles. These cubes are supposed to be carved. Imagine. Let's consider that this carving is done with primitive equipment and simple tools, which in itself is a suicidal task. Leveling the surface of 2 million stones requires incredible effort and extraordinary labor, so the idea of carving the rocks is also not logical at all. Thus, almost all the methods and hypotheses we've heard so far are not correct at all. Goodbye. Or let us continue. What would be your defense if I told you that the stone blocks from which the pyramid was built were cast in place just like we cast ordinary concrete? Yeah, samawa. And these rocks were neither carved nor anything. This is what the Swiss researcher von Däniken and the French Joseph Davidovits said. They said that the Egyptians at that time knew how to make a specific mixture that formed an artificial rock harder than the concrete we use today. This mixture was made of clay and some chemicals that were heated. When this mixture dried, it looked exactly like natural rock and could last for thousands of years. And imagine that by using this simple hypothesis, we will solve all the problems we encountered with all the previous hypotheses. We will not need to cut and carve the stones with high precision. We will not need to transport the stones over immense distances. We will also not need to lift the stones to such great heights. And this is something if... Okay, how did the scientists come up with this theory and where did the topic start? The beginning was with a group of scientists searching for a secret room inside the room. They exposed the entire pyramid to a series of rays and suddenly noticed that the devices were giving them conflicting and illogical results, even though the devices were working fine and had no defects. The only explanation for what happened was that the stones of the pyramid contained a large amount of water inside. See, scientifically, this amount of water cannot be present in natural rocks, which led them to lean towards the idea that these rocks are manufactured or constructed. Then Joseph conducted an experiment trying to create a similar mixture. And the experiment succeeded, and he obtained positive results. Indeed, he was able to manufacture rocks of those sizes, and they were also bonded together. Currently, the researchers are trying to decipher the mixture that the pharaohs used, and then they said that the secret of this mixture is one of the many secrets the pharaohs knew, just as they knew about astronomy, chemistry, and in grinding. In other words, the stones of the pyramids were like a material similar to liquid concrete poured into rectangular empty molds, and when it dried, it became cohesive and coordinated stones. This is the way they built this great monument. It's not far-fetched that they also used it in other buildings like temples and large obelisks. This means they neither lifted nor moved stones. They actually poured them in place inside molds. And of course, we're not saying that this casting hypothesis is a definitive method the pharaohs used to build the pyramids. We say that this is, to some extent, one of the most logical and acceptable hypotheses, and another theory might emerge one day that explains the subject even more. Finally, no one can deny that the pharaohs reached a level of knowledge in some fields that we haven't achieved to this day, despite the modern advancements and technology we possess. And with that, we have answered today how the pharaohs built the pyramids. As usual, if you have a puzzling question in the middle of the night while lying in bed and can't sleep, write it in the comments for us to answer. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and share, and when you see us again, subscribe and turn on the bell so you get our videos immediately. See you in the next episode.